Hello, welcome to More Yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're having a great day and up for some little bit of yoga. Yeah, messing around with stuff, having fun, the usual kind of stuff that I like to do. As always, blocks can be really useful or something to bring your knee down with a little bit of cushioning onto the mat. And let's start lying down. And depending on how your day has been, you might need to take some time to get some wiggles out, or depending how much caffeine you've had, you might have more wiggles to get out than at other times. Maybe you feel comfortable being still right away. And then for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. And exhale, sigh your breath away. A couple more. And continue breathing however you need to, whether it's in and out through your nose or your mouth. Notice how the breath is flowing. If you feel really open and spacious and smooth, then great. Acknowledge that for whatever it's worth. And maybe with the change in weather, or if you've just eaten, you notice some sticky or choppy spots along the way, in which case, also great. But if you want to, you could gently try to lengthen through those parts of the breath just to smooth it out a little bit more without forcing a really deep or long breath. And if you notice your mind wandering or starting to chase thoughts, acknowledge whatever thought you might be having, but try to draw your focus back to your breath. It could be larger movements in the body with the breath. Sometimes it makes it easier for us to focus on it. Sometimes it's the sound of the breath. Maybe it's the smallest little point of focus, just the tip of your nose or the space between your nostrils. And this type of meditation, because that's what you're doing, it's called Anapanasati. It's just literally observing the rising and falling energy, the warming and cooling of the breath. And last few moments here. And then start to bring a little bit of movement back into your body, whatever way feels best for you to wake up. Could be a big yawning stretch or just a subtle movement of the fingertips or toes until you feel ready to draw your knees into your chest and take a little rock from side to side. And it might feel really good here just continuing this side to side motion, or you could draw circles with your legs in the hip sockets. You could extend one leg or the other. You could shake everything out. And then come back to center. Plant your feet, so keeping the knees bent. So the feet end up about hip width apart. parallel-ish and close enough into your bum that you can tickle your heels with your fingertips. So we're setting up for a bridge pose. And often I see people take their feet really wide. That's not how wide your hips are. Right. So when I say hip width, I mean literally just where your legs naturally hang from your hips. Um, yeah, because otherwise we all have huge variations, right? Some people are quite wide, some people are quite narrow, but most of us have a relatively similarly sized pelvis. So anyway, that's not true, but there's less variation. All right. Anyway, from here, press your feet into the floor and inhale. Peel the pelvis and the spine up and away. And then as you exhale, slowly lower back down. So just a few more of these on your own time, on your own breath. Inhale it to lift the pelvis and spine, and exhale to lower. And notice as you're moving here, if your knees are kind of winging out to the side, then your glutes really aren't doing as much work as they could. So think of almost scrubbing your heels away from each other, and that will help fire up the outer glutes that will keep your legs in neutral. And it means that your knees aren't going to touch, right? You're not using the adductors here to hug the legs toward each other. They're just being used as stabilizers. Last full round here. Inhale to lift and exhale to lower. And then once you're down, you might pause in stillness for a couple breaths or take a little wiggle. And then come back to center. So we're going to set up for a second round of bridge pose. And then this time, as you inhale, lift up and away, and then pause at the top. Now, for more stability, you could have your arms reaching along beside you, palms down. You could bend your elbows maybe and take robot arms. Maybe that feels more stable. Some of you might walk onto the outside edge of the shoulders and clasp the hands behind the back, if that feels good for you. And we're going to stay here for a little while longer. Now, the first option is to stay here. Second option is to walk the left foot in a little bit, come onto the toes of the right leg, and then maybe you draw that right knee toward you or reach it up to the sky. And then bend the right knee, bring the foot back to the floor, find that sort of neutral hip width position, and then walk the right foot in slightly, come onto the toes of the left foot. Maybe you draw the knee toward you, or maybe you reach the leg up to the sky. And then bend the left knee, bring your foot back down to the earth, unclasp your hands if they're clasped, and then exhale, roll back down to the floor. All right, take your feet mat width apart and a little windshield wiper of the legs here to release out the lumbar spine as well as the hips. And the next time your knees are over at the left, pause there. This might feel like absolutely the most perfect place for you to be. If you want to change it up a little bit, you could reach the right arm back into the right. You could even deepen it by hooking the left ankle over top of the right thigh. You might let the hips just sort of hang passively, or you could squeeze the bum on that right side. It'll lift the hips up a little bit more, giving you a little bit more release through the right side of the body. And then if your ankle is hooked over top, unhook it. And then take a couple windshield wipers to release. And the next time your knees are over at the right, pause there. And again, different side can be a totally different experience. So maybe this is just the most delicious little snack that you've had and it feels great. Maybe you reach your left arm back into the left. You could hook the right ankle over top of the left thigh. And maybe it feels good to just let it all hang there. Or maybe you squeeze the bum on the left side and get into a slightly more active variation. Last breath here. All right, and if the ankle is hooked, unhook it, come back to center, a couple little windshield wipers. And then grab the backs of your thighs. You might start to rock and roll up and down your spine here. You might roll to one side and press yourself up, but let's meet on hands and knees. You can always bring some extra padding underneath your knees here if that feels better on your body. And then make sure your hands are outer shoulder width apart or wider. So that means right where the outer edge of the shoulder lines up with the middle of the wrist, right? It's not like shoulder width, it's outer shoulder width, right? It's different from hip width to outer hip width. And then tuck the toes, or untuck the toes, whatever feels better. And we'll move through cat and cow. So inhale, lift the tailbone, hollow through the lower back, broaden through the collarbones. Exhale, tuck the tailbone under, round through the spine. Really press the floor away from you. And then inhale to dip the belly into cow. Exhale, round the spine into cat. And as always, I invite you to add a little bit of natural movement here if that feels good on your body. Could be some barrel rolls through the chest or shoulders. You could wag your tail a little bit from side to side. You could send your hips further back toward your heels, making kind of a big circle. Go where you need to go. Last breath here. And then pause back in center on hands and knees. From here, cross your right hand in front of the left. And I do mean in front, so not over to the left, off the mat. Try to keep it on the mat. And then your hand could be quite close into the fingertips, or it could be further forward. Tuck your toes, exhale, shift your hips back toward your heels. Now you could stay up high here on your hands. You might come down to a forearm. You might wag your tail a little bit from side to side and see if there's a more interesting angle for this release on your body. But probably feeling something or a lot of things along the right side of your body, from the fingertips to your tailbone, or sit bone anyway. And then as you inhale, come back up to center, hands and knees, a little wiggle or shake to release. And then we'll switch sides. So cross the left hand in front of the right. And it could be quite close in or further forward. And then on your exhale, shift your hips back. You might stay up high or come down to a forearm or two. You could wag your tail from side to side. Last breath here. All right, and then inhale. Come back to center, little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. You're welcome to stay here moving and grooving if that's going to be better on your body today. Otherwise, tuck your toes and join me lifting the hips up in downward facing dog. Pedal your heels toward the floor, kind of slowly, bending one knee and then the other. So really getting into the calf muscles here. You can wag your tail from side to side. And in fact, let's turn all 10 toes to the right. Both heels go to the left. Lift that right hip up a little bit higher. And then come back to center. And then spin all 10 toes to the left, heels to the right. Lift that left hip up a little bit higher. And then come back to center. Last couple breaths in stillness, if that works on your body. Bend your knees. Look forward. Take as many steps as you need to come into your standing forward fold. If you'd like more support today, then rest your elbows on your knees or thighs. Maybe it feels good to bring hands to blocks or a coffee table even, or a pillow. You could clasp opposite elbows with your hands. You can sway a little bit from side to side. And you can see my knees are not straight here. It feels super strange for me to even try to straighten out the legs, let alone lock them out. I encourage you to maintain at least a micro bend, if not even a deeper bend. The thing about bending the knees is it helps release tension in the lumbar spine, whereas straightening the legs starts to generate tension. Last couple breaths here. All right, and then release your hands with fingertips to your shins or blocks or the earth. Inhale, little partway lift, belly button to spine. Exhale, let it all go. Couple more, just like that. And then bend your knees, tuck your chin into your chest, slowly start to roll up to standing. One vertebra at a time, as slow as you need to go, till eventually you come all the way up to standing. Couple loops of your shoulders up, back, and down. A little wiggle, noodle, or shake out. Bring your hands to your hips, bend the knees, take a few gentle hip circles, one direction, and then the other. Maybe a little twist from side to side. All right. And then send your weight into your right foot. Little buoyancy on that supporting knee. On your inhale, step your left leg back as if for warrior two. So you can set up with heel to heel alignment or heel to arch alignment. Heel to heel is going to give you a little bit more space in the pelvis. It just gives you more room. And no one knows, right? No one can tell. It's not like it looks prettier or uglier. It's not a big deal. I want you to bend both knees though, and then stick your booty back. Get a little wiggle on, a little shake. You can draw hip circles here. You can rock from side to side. And what we're doing here, keep moving, keep grooving, is we're giving a little bit more lubrication, a little bit more space in that front hip for when we eventually start to sink into that front knee and then supercharge that back leg towards straight. Thinking of hugging the legs toward each other rather than pressing them away, right? Imagine you're Bambi on ice. You don't want to face plant, right? So hug the legs toward each other. When you look down, can you see the big toe on the inside of that front knee? If not, you can even take your thigh and wrap it out and back to really fire up the glutes and then supercharge that back leg towards straight. Can you de-weight the big toe on the back foot so that you're not rolling into the arch of the foot? There's a ton going on now in the lower body. I don't really care how open your hips are, but can you find a little bit of ease in the upper body? So maybe the arms are out, maybe bend the elbows. Sometimes I just like to bring my palms to my heart and even close my eyes for a couple breaths here. And then flip the front palm up. As you inhale, sweep over your back leg, exalted warrior. One hand could rest on your thigh or your hip, or do any sort of arm variation of your choice. You can even give yourself a sneaky little neck massage with that top arm. And by all means, if it feels better to straighten that front leg, straighten the front leg. Right? Exalted triangle instead of exalted warrior. And then keep the back of the neck long. So as soon as we lift the chin, listen to what happens to my voice, right? There's weird shit, stuff, excuse me, going on when you don't keep the neck and the throat long. All right, inhale back to center. Go ahead and straighten that front leg. Whew, that was a lot. And then heel and toe your back foot in a little bit or a lot. Kind of depends on how long your warrior two stance was today. I prefer triangle, which is where we're going with a shorter stance. And then hug the legs toward each other without locking them out. Belly button to spine. And then imagine someone's got a rope and is pulling your hips back, 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 back. Compensate with the upper body by tilting forward. Now you can stay here, hovering it out. You can add more weights to it, making it more challenging for your obliques and your core. You could take weight off, if you want to fold deeper, scoop this front hip under and back, right? Similar motion to what we did in Warrior Two, and that'll give you more space to fold. You can rest a hand on the calf or a block. All right. And then imagine that there's a wall behind you. Can you lean back into this imaginary wall? So you're spiraling those upper left ribs open to the sky. Last breath here. All right, bring that top hand to your hip, look forward and down, bend your knee, and as slowly as you can, maybe bring a block with you, start to float the back leg up for a half moon balance or Ardha Chandrasana. This is, you can see, a really fantastic place to have a block under that front hand. Maybe your hand can reach the floor. Maybe you hover it out. Top arm could reach up to the sky. And we have a tendency to kick this lifted leg behind us. So can you reach the heel back? Flare the toes on that lifted foot so your brain can find it in space. Last breath here. All right, step all the way back. Whew, Warrior Two. And de-weight the back heel, wrap the hips forward, and then step to the top edge of the mat. Couple hip circles. And a little twist. Whew, my heart rate's up. I don't know about yours. Excuse me, my goodness. All right, send your weight to your left leg. And then pick up the right foot. Step it back for Warrior Two on the opposite side. Okay, so I'm going to turn around. You stay where you are. So the right knee is bent. Sorry, left knee is bent. Now, and then actually both legs are bent. Turn that back foot in slightly, stick your booty back, get that little wiggle on, little shake, hip circles. Oh, this feels so different for me on this side than it does on the other, but I've got some sort of weird chronic thing going on my front hip, so I should probably maybe go see someone about that. And eventually start to sink into that front knee as you supercharge your back leg towards straight. I don't care what angle this front thigh is on. It doesn't have to be down parallel to the floor. That's a lot of work. Go where you need to go. Hug the legs toward each other. Back foot slightly turned in is going to give you more support here. Make sure you can see that big toe on the front foot. Maybe you wrap the hip out and back. And then arms can go wherever. Couple more breaths here. And we don't often spend a lot of time just sitting in to our warrior pose. All right, flip the front palm up. Inhale, sweep over your back leg, exalted warrior, or exalted triangle if you need to straighten that front leg or want to. Back hand could go wherever. Maybe you give yourself a sneaky little neck massage with that top arm. If you haven't tried it, go for it. Feels good. Last breath here. Keep the back of the neck long. And then inhale, come back to Warrior Two. Gently straighten that front leg. Little wiggle. Heel and toe, then back foot in a lot or a little or however much you need to. For some reason, my warrior stances felt really long today, so I do need to shorten my stance for triangle. Hug the legs toward each other. Little buoyancy on those knees. Shift your hips back as you reach your upper body forward over top of that front leg. And again, you can hover it out, right? Just playing with your strength, or scoop that front hip under and back. Maybe you have a block to bring underneath your hand, or you can rest on the calf. I'm going to get a block for myself. And then keep spiraling the upper right ribs open to the sky. Lean back into that imaginary wall. Make sure your knees haven't locked out. Gaze can go wherever. You don't have to look up. All right. And then imagine you're trying to pull yourself up with a rope from that top hand. No, wait, don't do it. Bend that top elbow, bring the hand to the hip. Look forward, bend the front knee. And as slowly as you can, start to float that back leg up. right? It's the slow movement that really helps us find the balance. You could hover it or bring a hand to the floor or to a block or a coffee table. And again, try not to kick that lifted foot back behind you. Reach it straight back. Little micro bend on that supporting leg really helps. Last breath here. All right, step all the way back into your warrior two, kind of just to release it, and then spin the hips forward, step to the top edge of the mat. Hands on hips. Awesome work. I didn't see what you were doing, but if you feel anything like I did, well done. Inhale, sweep up to the sky. Exhale, dive or fold down to the earth. And then for 3 breaths, inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. 2 more. And then bend your knees, plant your hands. Come down to hands and knees. Little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. And then take your knees wide, toes together. Shift your hips back into a child's pose. Now you might have a pillow or blocks that you can bring underneath your torso. You could stack your fists underneath your forehead or your palms. Maybe your forehead reaches the earth. If your hips are up really high, you could bring a pillow between your bum and your heels, and that'll give you quite a bit more support. And then take a few really conscious breaths here. Inhale through the nose. And exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then gently press yourself up. Just enough that you can roll over onto your back. Once you're down, hug your knees into your chest and take a little rock from side to side. So we'll end with a quick twist from one side to the other. You might shift your hips right a little bit. Right arm goes out to the side. And then exhale, lower the knees to the left. You can take any variation of twist. Knees could be stacked, legs could be crossed. You could take a single leg twist. This is a great place to bring something between the thighs or underneath the bottom knee for a little bit more support. And on your inhale, return to center. Reset your pelvis and your spine. And left arm out to the side. Maybe you shift your hips left. Exhale, lower the knees to the right. And again, as gentle or as deep of a twist as you need. And on your inhale, return to center. Reset your pelvis and your spine. And then make your way into your final resting pose, which could be flat on your back, legs bent or straight in Shavasana. You could rest on the side or in child's pose or seated meditation if you prefer. And there's no rush to get there. But once you have found your pose of rest, for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh the breath away. Couple more. And then let go of your breath control. Return to your natural breath. And let go of any last muscle gripping or tension, particularly in the neck or the jaw. With each exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. Stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.